Hello and welcome to HRC Online. This is one of our assessment reviews for 5CO03, which is Professional Behaviours and Valuing People. Now, in this assessment review, we're going to break down the new June 2024 assessment into its component parts and the elements that you need to be keeping an eye on, the things you should be looking at. This is a slightly different assessment from CIPD than what we're used to. So there's a couple of things that you really need to keep an eye on. I'm going to try and break down the marking criteria with the written questions. It will become a lot more apparent as we go through it to try and help guide you to the right answer on the questions. Now, in preparation for the task, CIPD always say the same thing. At the start of your assignment, you're encouraged to plan and assess your work with your assessor and, where appropriate, agree milestones so you can monitor your progress. Refer to the indicative content in the unit guide and support evidence. Pay attention to how your evidence is presented. Remember, you are working in a people practice team, and ensure that evidence is generated for this assessment remains all your own work. AI, plagiarism, assessment writers, the banks of data that we've got now for these things are crazy. So whilst I get sometimes it may seem like all this is way too much and it's turned into this big thing, where you can, like, don't try and take a shortcut anywhere, because if you get caught, you don't want to ruin your career based on a shortcut decision that you get caught for. I get sometimes it might seem easy. I get sometimes it might feel like it's an easy thing to do, but honestly, follow this, you'll be fine. You'll get through the assessment. You'll do absolutely great, but don't try and take a shortcut. Ensure all evidence is your own work, because you don't want to get caught out 3-4 years further down the road or anything like that when certain evidence gets brought forward or anything like that. So just keep it clean. We can do this. We'll break it down together. We'll make sure that you've got your assessment in place, and we'll make sure that you get the pass that you need. Okay. Now, the task for this is question responses. So see, the previous version of this was a task 1 and a task 2, but now you've just been given the clean 11 questions, and that's how CIPD have presented this new assessment. But there is a bit of a theme on it, where you're going to be given the same question. You've got to start everything with the same question over and over again. So the assessment, like the unit, is based on consider some key professional and ethical behaviours that are expected of a people practice professional. The assessment requires you to demonstrate in written responses your knowledge and ability against each of the requirements. To assist you to do this, assessment poses 11 questions, one for each of the requirements. You should respond to each of the 11 questions, providing a mix of theoretical, practical, and personal reflections as required. Some of the questions ask you to include feedback from others. 1. So before you commence the assessment, you are advised to identify and collect the relevant feedback from at least one other person who has an insight in your behaviour at work. So one of the questions, and we'll get to that question, is using your own evidence and that of one other person. Talk about how your reflections of work. You will need to set up and continue professional development, so your CPD documentation, if this has not already been done, you can do this in the CIPD portal and stuff. So again, when you're working through the centre, you probably get to this at a certain point and stuff like that. So I wouldn't worry too much about these things at the moment. It's saying do it all at the start. There's no requirement to do it all at the start. Just work through it systematically. And when you get to that point where you need some evidence from a line manager, when you need to build a CPD report, do it that way. When submitting your responses, please ensure that you are clearly signposted using subheadings or question numbers, AC references in the link to your questions. You should ensure that your work compiles within the word count requirements stated at the start of the assessment brief, and we will cover that. So what CIPD want you to do now, when you submit your assessment, this is one of the June 2024 things that we've had briefed, is in the top left-hand corner of your screen, where you put your title, you write AC 1.1, and then you start answering your question. And then when you move on to AC 1.2, you write AC 1.2 as a title in the top left there, and then you start to answer your question. CIPD want to see that against every single assessment now, so that when it's marked, when it's moderated, when a second or a third person looks at your script and marks it, and when it goes through AI, plagiarism, and other detectors, everything's laid out in a consistent format. So You're not going to fail if you don't do it, but all I'll say is you risk missing easy marks and stuff like that and making it more complicated. So it's a really easy thing to do to just write AC 1.1 on the top left of your sheet as you start to answer that question, AC 1.2 as you start to answer that question. That's how they want it laid out. That's how they want you to attack the unit. That's how they want you to go forward. Relatively simple. You'd be absolutely fine. Now, every single question within this task, it starts off the same way. An effective people practice professional will. So every question within the student side of it starts off an effective people practice professional will. Now you only see that against AC 1.1, but you have to start every single question with that. And we'll go through it when we do the assessment review. This is one of the cheeky little changes that they've done. And this really could throw you off. So like the video, save the video, do whatever you need to do, because you'll need to come back and forth to this if you're going to build up your assessment as you go through in systematic ways. But this start, an effective people professional will. And it'll all make sense as we go through the assessments, but that's the critical thing. Now, your written response is made up of 1 to 10 questions, which is 3,250 words. So you have 325 words to answer each question. CPD plan and a record document format edited to answer questions 8, 10, and 11. They're not included in the word count. So you do get some word count lenience. One of the things that I also like in this is CIPD have removed the ability on certain questions to say you don't need to add references and citations to this. You're absolutely fine. You can move forward. So that's one of the added perks as well. Now, question 1 to 3. See where I said on every question you've got to put an effective people practice professional will. Understand the purpose and vision, purpose and value of the people profession. And then it asks a question with reference to CIPD profession map, appraise what it means to be a people professional. An effective people practice professional will know, own personal and ethical values and apply these consistently in their people practice work. Discuss your personal ethical values, one for each, with examples of how these are evident for your work. If you have yet to work in the people practice, explore how your values will inform your work. Effective people practice professional will know the importance of people professionals contributing to discussions in an informed, clear and confident way to influence others. The question is discuss reasons why it's important and the consequences of people practitioners not being willing to able to influence others. So as I'm sure you can get, that these questions, they feel a bit content heavy, a bit crazy, a bit too much. So what I've done here is I've gone to these. So these are the marking guides. These are what the markers get. These are what the moderators get. And these are the same questions as what you've got there, but they're simplified. So again, pause, look at these questions, look at the questions that you've got in your learner assessment brief. You got your learner assessment brief. If you scroll down to the marking guidance, these are the basics of the question. So AC 1.1 is appraise what it means to be a people professional. AC 1.2 is recognize how personal and ethical values can be applied in the context of people practice. AC 1.3, consider the importance of people professionals contributing to discussions in an informed, clear and confident way to influence others. This is what you're going to get your graded on. Whether you get a grade 1, 2, 3 or 4, this is what we're going to be expected to mark you against as markers. So trying to sort of help you understand how the marking guidance and the questions that you've been given merge together, I've done a bit of a hybrid, and we're going to do this all the way through the qualifications to sort of help you do it. So an effective people practice professional will, using the CIPD profession map, appraise what it means to be a people professional. And you can see here, appraise what it means to be a people professional. If we go back, appraise what it means to be a people professional, you can see that those match off. But within the guidance here, it says CIPD profession map. So that's why I've added that using the CIPD profession map, appraise what it means to be a people professional, because CIPD want to see you using the profession map. That is what CIPD are doing in terms of giving you a clue to where the content is to help you pass this thing. So think of these little additions as Easter eggs for you to go sort of find the perfect answer so that you can answer it perfectly. But I would treat AC 1.1, and you can pause this again, screenshot it, do whatever you wish. Using the CIPD profession map, appraise what it means to be a people professional. As an effective people professional, will discuss your personal and ethical values, one for each. So one for personal values, one for ethical values, with example about how these are evident and applied in your work. So the reason I've put and applied and I've added that in is because in that line, that top line, know your own personal ethical values and apply these consistently. So and applied is where it kind of comes to the question. That entire line is just and applied. And again, when we go back to 1.2, recognize how personal and ethical values can be applied in the context of people professional. We've changed the question to discuss your personal and ethical, one for each, with examples about how these are evident and applied in your work. So if you haven't worked in people practice, again, you can still be ethical, you can still have personal ethics, you can still approach things in different ways. And the final one is the importance of people professionals contributing to discussions in an informed, clear, and confident way to influence others. Discuss why it's important and the consequences. This is again a little Easter egg CIPD have put in there of people practitioners not being willing or able to influence others. So again, you can pretty much ignore anything after the consequences, because what it's saying here is consider the importance of people professionals contributing to discussions in an informed, clear, and confident way to influence others. The only addition, the Easter egg that it's giving you, is consider the importance. When it says consider, it's and we go here, it's also saying consequences. So it wants to know some of the negative consequences of people professionals not, why it's important, and the consequences not being willing to influence others. So if you've got someone who is not prepared to have difficult conversations, who is not prepared to challenge and influence, what are the consequences of those actions? But fundamentally, the questions aren't any different between the two. So it's just, there's a little bit of an Easter egg for AC 1.1, which is the people profession map, and the consider the importance AC 1.3. They want you to talk about the consequences of the actions in there, and that's another little Easter egg to try and help you build out your answer. Because consider, from a verb perspective, they want you to consider both sides, the good and the bad, and the consequences of not challenging effectively within the workplace. Okay, so you can see how CIPD have approached this particular unit, and they've approached it in a completely unique way to what they've ever done before. But this is what it's really interesting, and I actually think it's a really beneficial approach, because these are the types of questions that you would get in a role as a people practice professional. Now we're going to move on to 4 to 7 questions. 4 to 7, and again, as everything starts, an effective people practice professional will know when to raise matters that might be unethical or illegal. Question: discuss with examples when and how you would react to both unethical and illegal matters. One for each, one for unethical, one for illegal. Be able to make use of related theory and thinking to argue the human and business benefit of people feeling included, valued, and treated fairly at work. Demonstrate your ability to do this with a written argument which poses different theoretical perspectives as well as your own. Is a key one there, because obviously, yes, you can just reference citations and stuff like that, but you have to apply some self to it. Know how to design people practice initiatives to be inclusive, and how to check inclusivity after an initiative has been implemented. Discuss with examples how you or would achieve both of these. I hate it when they do stuff like that. Be able to work inclusively with others and build positive working relationship using a combination of your own reflections and feedback from at least one other person. You see where he said that you'd have an action to go and speak to somebody. So feedback from one other person. Discuss your ability to work inclusively and positively with other people. There is no requirement to include evidence or the use of references in AC 2.3, and CIPD have given us that. So there is no requirement for external references and citations or anything like that for 2.3, and they have made it abundantly clear in the learner assessment brief that if you don't include a reference for 2.3, you will not be marked down for it. Now, again, these seem really wordy questions, and you're thinking, well, hold a second, what does it mean? Well, actually, we can simplify it, and we will simplify it. But first, if you are struggling with CIPD courses, if you're enrolled with HRC Online, you will have access to something which we're going to call CIPD Bite Size, which is where we do a video per AC breaking down every AC into actions, some recommended reading. We do a bit of an analogy and a bit of a story to sort of help you understand and contextualize the question. But if you are struggling with any ACs, if you are getting refers back on ACs, you'll be able to purchase individual videos and content based on each of the ACs through something which we're going to call in CIPD Bite Size, and that will launch in October 2024. So it's not available yet. If you are fully enrolled with just HRC Online, you will be given this for free, so you'll get access to this as and when each of the videos go live. But when you look at the questions for 4 to 7, and we'll just go straight back into it, recognize when and how you would raise matters which conflict with ethical values and legislation. Argued human business benefit of people feel included, valued, fairly treated, linking that to a related theory. Discuss strategies for designing and ensuring inclusive people practice. Reflect on your own approaches to working inclusively and building positive working relationships with others. So when we start to look at, again, these questions, I've put lines through elements where you can sort of ignore it, which is know when and how to raise matters that might be unethical. Discuss with examples when and how you would react to both unethical and illegal matters, one for each, one for unethical, one for illegal. And that goes straight back to recognize when and how. Be able to make use of related theory. Argue the human business benefit of making people feel included, valued, and fairly treated. So again, when you go to the marking question, argue the business benefits of making people feel included, valued, and fairly treated, linking to one related theory. Demonstrate. So again, you can probably demonstrate your ability to do this with a written argument, which poses a different theoretical perspective as well as your own. That's just a reinforcement of that sentence above. So again, that's a really simple question. Then if you look at discuss strategies for designing and ensuring inclusive people practice, design a people practice initiative to be inclusive and check inclusivity after the initiative has been implemented. Discuss with examples how or would achieve for both of these. So how would you design a people practice initiative that is inclusive? How would you check it is inclusive after you've implemented? So that's what they mean by strategy. It's not just a case of coming up with a great idea. How would you check that that great idea has been successful? That's what they want you to do. Discuss with examples, and then examples of, would you do a focus group? Would you do a survey? Would you do staff engagement score? What would be your metrics to ensure that it's been successful and fully inclusive? And then using a combination of your own reflections and feedback from at least one other person, discuss your ability to work inclusively and positively with others. So again, be able to develop inclusive and other people, blah, 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 blah. Again, we just simplify that question in using a combination of your own reflections and feedback from at least one other person, discuss your ability to work inclusively and positively with others. And again, remember, you have 325 words to answer each of these questions. So 325, bish, 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 and you can work through it systematically. You can easily get through it. Now, questions 8 to 11. Again, these feel massive, but they're not. I promise they're not. It's just that there's a lot of words. An effective people professional will understand how the people practitioner role is evolving and the implications it has for ongoing professional development. Demonstrate your understanding with a written response that relates to entries in your CPD plan. So again, you're instructed to develop a CPD plan in this and to create your own sort of learning journey. So again, that's just demonstrate your understanding with a written response. Be able to assess your own strengths and weaknesses, development areas based on considerations and feedback from others, using a combination of your own conclusions and feedback from at least one other person. Assess yourself against a specification of your choice, such as role, job description, any two-way core behaviors of the CIPD profession map at the associate level. Briefly explain the outcome of your assessment, strengths, weakness, and development areas, and information you've used to inform your conclusions. If you read that, the top bit, that's the same instruction as the bottom bit. It's just duplicated. It's a lot of words. But really, it's just pick an area of development, assess your own strengths, weaknesses, and development areas against it, get feedback from someone else, and draw your own conclusions. There's no requirement to include evidence such as use of reference for wider reading or anything like that. So again, just build out your answer systematically. The next one, formulate a range of CPD options to support ongoing learning, following on from your self-assessment, which you can do on the CIPD website. So if you've got to be a CIPD member to study CIPD, so you're going to log on this, you're going to go through it. It's a really simple process. You'd be fine. Following from a self-assessment, identify a range of formal or informal development activities and add these to your CPD plan document. Provide a brief explanation to why you've selected the things. So you go on CIPD's thing, you fill out this survey about what you're good at, what you're exceeding at, what you're developing at, and then it gives you a range of courses that you should do. Select the courses that most interest you, and they may connect it to your job, it may connect it to what you're interested in, but you just build it out that way. Really easy, really simple, feels big, really isn't. I think you're probably talking best part of about 20 exceeding to underperforming expectations. So basically a scale of 1 to 5. Be able to reflect and draw conclusions about the effectiveness and development activities. Reflect on 3 development activities you've already undertaken and have impacted your work behavior or performance, explaining how these have impacted you. Your reflection should be presented as a CPD record document. There is no reference requirement or anything like that. And I believe, I'm just going to double check, this one is not included. So 11 is not included in the word count. So when you're reflecting on these 3 development activities, this isn't connected to your 325 per question. This is, you can fully explain this in graphic detail about what you've done, what you found, what you've worked out and everything like that. So you can really build out this answer if you do so wish. So again, breaking this down into the moderation and marking descriptions of these questions. Explore how the role of people professionals is evolving and the implications this has for CPD. Assess the strengths, weaknesses, and development area based on self-assessment and feedback from one another. Formulate a range of formal or informal continuing professional development activities to support your learning journey, which you will do on the CIPD website, and reflect on the impact of your continuing professional development activities on your own behavior and the performance of someone else. So again, just using some of my line throughs to sort of break the questions out for you is understand the role of people practitioners evolving and the implications it has for continued professional development. Explore how the role of and the limitations it has for continued professional development. Demonstrate your understanding in a written response. So again, you could probably put the line through the question, which is just explain, because that's explore. So you're just exploring how it's done. Be able to assess your own strengths, weaknesses, and development areas based on considerations and feedback from others, using a combination of your own conclusions and feedback from at least one other person. Assess yourself against specification of your choice, which you can find on the CIPD website. So that could be anything. Identify a range of formal or informal development activities and add these to your CPD plan document. And then you just add screenshots in, which is why you'll also see that it still sort of says 10, not necessarily included in the word count. Reflect on 3 development activities you have undertaken and that impact on your work, behavior, and performance. So again, think about what have you learned? What training courses have you been on? How has it improved my work? How have they impacted you? What have they made you consider as a people professional? And that's what you need to do and build out your answer and stuff like that. So again, not as bad as when you first read them. It's a really interesting approach from CIPD to take as an effective people practice professional will, but you can really build out your answer. You can really get through this relatively efficiently. You've just got to look at the marking guidance question and the question that you've got. And there are some Easter eggs in there when it comes to certain things like looking at the CIPD profession map, getting feedback from one other person and stuff like that. And just so don't get caught up in the wordiness of the question. That's the big thing for this. Don't get caught up in the wordiness of the question. It's just a form of 11 questions that you have to answer. And if you are struggling, obviously in October, we'll be going live with CIPD Bite Size. If you are already enrolled with HRC Online, you will be getting access to Bite Size as and when each of the individual modules go live. I believe we're already live for 5 HR0, 1, 2, and 3. So the core modules will be next. Absolutely best of luck if you are studying this unit. If you are stuck at anything like that, obviously you can reach out to us. You can ask a question on this channel or anything like that. But best of luck on your studies. I'm sure you'll do absolutely great. Take care.